Hello and welcome to my Spring Snapdragons Grow-Along. Today I will cover how to sow your seeds. I'll cover Snapdragon groups and what they all mean. But first, I wanted to show you some of my Snapdragons that I sowed back in the autumn. So these were autumn sowed. They were sowed on the 14th of the 9th last year, so 14th of September. And they have been inside my greenhouse all winter, overwintering. I originally sowed them in a pot just like this, and they've been pricked out. So they were pricked out actually not that long ago. They were pricked out maybe 3-4 weeks ago, and they have grown a little bit since then, just a tiny bit, but they're looking really, really lovely and stocky. They're not leggy at all, and that's because I've had them outside in the greenhouse in the cool, which is exactly what Snapdragons absolutely love. Now, these will start to grow quite rapidly as we go through this month. So we're in February right now, and as the light levels start to increase and the temperature just starts to increase, these little guys will start to explode in growth. So at the moment, they're not quite big enough for me to take cuttings off them yet. However, I will be as soon as they probably need to double in length. And as soon as we've got a double on there, then I will pinch out those tops and I will root those. I'll do a separate video about that when they're ready. But essentially that's what I'll be doing with them. But I'm just really, really pleased at how stocky and amazing they are. And they've got an amazing root system in there. You can't quite see it through the plastic because I've only just potted them up recently. So the roots haven't had time to go round yet. So you won't be able to see how strong the roots are. But they, you can see how stocky the plants are. They are not, weak little seedlings. As long as you can get them through the damping off period, autumn's a great time to sow them too. But if you've missed that sowing window, then this is your next chance. It's a perfect time because it's still cool out there. They're going to enjoy the same conditions as what these have over the winter. So let's begin by talking about Snapdragon groups. So today I'm going to be sowing some Avignon and some Potomacs. And the groupings with Snapdragons are really, really important. So let me take you, there are 4 groups. Let me take you through those groups. So my Avignons are group 2s, and the Potomacs are group 3/4s. So what that means in reality is that the groups are all essentially about light levels. They're about day length, and it's about temperature. So it's not about size, it's not about beauty, it's not about difficulty of growing. It's just essentially biology doing its thing. So group 1s. The group 1s are the low light specialists. So they're fabulous for the UK. They are bred to flower under short days and low light. So they're ideal for late winter sowing and very early spring flowering. They're best sown in the late summer. So we're talking, end of August time or into early autumn to maybe like September time. So the group 2s. This is the crossover group, which is where the Avignon series come in, which I'll be sowing today. So these tolerate short to medium day length. They're very flexible, they're very forgiving, and they can be autumn or late winter sown, just like we are now. We're in February right now, so they're perfect. And they're a really great bridge between early and a main season crop, which is what you'd get from the Potomacs, which I'm also sowing today. So similar, we're in February, we're in late winter, so this is the earliest you'd be sowing them. And they flower really strongly throughout the late spring and into summer, and they're great for that succession crop that you've got just a little bit later on in the year if you've sown some of the other groups. Then we have the group 3s. These are the main season workhorses. These prefer an increased day length. They are best sown in late winter and early spring. They flower really strongly throughout the late spring and into summer. So they're excellent for succession sowing. And this is where the Potomacs that I'm sowing today straddle group 3 and group 4. So the group 4s, these are the long day lovers, essentially. They need long days, they need warmth, and they just will not flower properly until the light levels are high. They're best sown in spring, and their peak performance is throughout the summer. So essentially what I'm sowing today is a group 2 and a group 3 to 4. So these are going to take me from the late spring right through the summer. So I've got the Avignon, which likes it a little bit cooler, and then for my next succession I then got the Potomacs, which like it much, much hotter. So the big misconception is that Snapdragon groups affect stem length, vase life, or even flower quality, but they only determine when a plant's biology is actually willing to flower. So if you have disappointing snaps flowering at the wrong time, then you need to look really closely at the groups that you're actually sowing and make sure that you are sowing the right groups. By sowing your Potomac as early as possible and your Avignons as early as possible, what you're doing is you're giving them lots and lots of cool temperatures to elongate, but they will not flower until the temperatures are ready for them and the light levels are ready. And until then, they'll carry on growing nice long stems. So that's how you get the great long florist-worthy stems. Okay, so let me show you how I'm going to sow mine now. They're not tricky at all. They're super easy to sow. So let me show you that now. Okay, so what I have here is I have lots of pots with just some regular composting, straight out the bag compost. There's nothing special on this. It's just, it's quite useful for seed sowing. I very rarely use just a seed sowing mix. So my cat has come to join me, and as lovely as she is, she's not really very good at seed sowing, so I may need to kick her off the bench in a second. So essentially we just open up that packet, and this compost is wet already. I've already watered it, and we're just going to sprinkle them over the top. I mean, they're just like dust. They just disappear like dust. There we go. We're going to pop the label in there so we know which ones they are. And I will sow all of these packets into the pots I've got. You can see they're in there. They're really, really tiny. You can see how small they are. Now there's 40 seeds in this packet. So, you don't need to use a gigantic seed tray. You don't need to use one of these. This would be total overkill for 40 tiny Snapdragon seeds. You saw how small they are. So now I have all of my seeds sowed. What I'm going to do is pop them into this propagator base. And as I mentioned, the compost has been pre-watered. But if you have forgotten and you didn't pre-water your compost, whatever you do, do not use a huge big garden watering can, because that's going to be like torrential rain. You saw how small those seeds were. They're tiny. They will get washed away. What you need to use is a small watering can like this, okay, to water these, and then that won't wash away the seeds. What you can also do is you can give the top a bit of a spritz just to anchor those seeds down into the soil, because remember, they need light to germinate, so we haven't covered them, and that just makes sure that they've got really good contact with the soil. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pop this lid over the top, and they like a temperature of about 18 to 20 degrees, so quite warmer than what it is right now, essentially in my shed and outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them inside into my studio. It's about 10 degrees in the studio, but they will sit on a heated mat, so they'll get that 18 to 20 degrees on there. As soon as they've germinated, like literally as soon as I can see those green specks popping up, They will come out of that propagator and they will stay in that environment for a few weeks just to grow them on a little bit. And then I'll start getting them out into the greenhouse, because really they don't want warm conditions. They want nice, cool conditions. And as the weeks go by, it will get warmer and warmer in my studio. So I'll need to make sure I get them in the greenhouse to get those nice stocky plants that you saw earlier from my autumn sown seeds. So if you are sowing snapdragons this season, then good luck. Check out the Snapdragon groups. All of the information about those Snapdragon groups is all in my blog. I will pop that in the notes for you, so you can link through to that and you can have a read of that. You can print out a copy, stick it on the shed wall. I think some people do that. So really handy. Okay, so that's it for today. Thanks so much for following. Do give me a like if you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you next time.